on the street.
On the air.
We're on the street and we are on the air. You're listening to Kaya Biz with myself, Gugulethu Mfupi. It's our special December edition. And I say the December with a Z deliberately, right? Because we know what that means. So we will be giving you a refresher of key business stories that we've covered on the show throughout the course of this week that will be taking place in the second hour. But as you can tell right now and during 6 to 7 o'clock, we have been keeping you updated on key business stories that really speak to where we are as South Africans and the holiday mode that we're in. So whether you had a braai, whether you love sports, there's a business angle there. And of course, if you've been shopping and tapping your card, then this particular story will intrigue you, especially when it comes to making sure that you are safe and secure during this festive season. And as much as you and I might be a lot more relaxed and in terms of our choices and how we shop, we do need to be on hand and a lot more alert given the concerns around cyber security. So we need to understand the various forms of fraud that are affecting consumers using their tap and go cards to make payments. Richard Frost, Head of Consulting at Armata Cybersecurity, joins us now for more. Richard, a very good evening and a warm welcome, sir. Thank you for making time on your public holiday. Happy Day of Reconciliation.
Thank you so much, Gugulethu. Lucky to speak to you again.
Oh, lovely to touch base with you. Richard, it's that time of the year, right? And this is where we tend to tap or swipe our cards a lot more often because there's heightened shopping that takes place. I'm one of those as well who typically loves to tap my card. I hardly withdraw or carry cash. And it's really become a bit of a lifestyle. So maybe let's talk about our culture of shopping and tapping and how that speaks to our transactions before we take a look at some of the key themes we need to be understanding around fraud.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the whole tap and go function of the card, it became quite popular just before COVID. And then with COVID, I think there was a lot of the security around the tap and go function was disabled to kind of, mitigate the chances of you having to touch the card machine to put your PIN in or something like that. So it became a lot easier to sit in a restaurant and just tap your card on the machine to make a payment. I think, people have started getting a little bit more aware of the risks and have started enabling the PIN function again for certain amounts. But some of the things that we started seeing is, people using fraudulent card payment machines to actually take money off. Your card can be tapped multiple times when you're trying to effect a payment. What happens is the threat actors actually come close enough to you that as you making a payment at a petrol station or wherever it is, they can actually get access to your card without you noticing. Could be with a device like a cell phone or some form of bank registered device that they can actually get close enough to actually touch your card or make contact with the chip to actually make the tap payment. The other method that we've seen, obviously, people are still making clones of cards. So, when you reach over to tap, there's some form of device that's making a copy of your card front and back. So cameras either placed just in front of the machine and above the machine to see both sides of the card, or else the device itself is cloning the information from your card to effect further online crimes using your card's information.
Sheesh, this is quite scary, Richard. And I do see in one of the recent reports here, you do also highlight, how quickly and seamlessly this can happen. And you use an example of, paying for petrol and someone might be standing near you with their card. And as you've mentioned, there's certain devices that can actually duplicate your card or duplicate a transaction.
Yeah, I think if you think about an experience of going to a shop, you've got a lot of people around you. We as South Africans are I even remember a time in COVID going to a shopping centre and having to remind people, about the social distancing aspect. And, when you go to the shop, there's a lot of people around you and we're not always aware of our surroundings. So it's very easy for someone with some kind of payment device to come close enough to you while you're making a payment. And they're pretending, to talk to a cashier and asking about if they've got prepaid airtime or if they've got something else in the back of the shop behind the till. And while they're distracting you with that and you reaching over to pay, they kind of, just brush your cell phone, push your card and take the payment off.
And I think this is so important because we often think, well, I've got, facial recognition on my phone. I have to unlock my phone. Sometimes it asks for a passcode. But these security measures, are they not sufficient or do we need to do more?
Yeah, so this relates specifically to the bank card itself. I personally feel that the digital cell phone banking using a digital wallet is a lot more secure. The reason for that is, like you said, you have to use some kind of biometric or some kind of PIN number to unlock the feature. But the better part of the feature is the fact that it enacts one transaction at a time. So in other words, if you're leaning over to pay for a transaction, you actually need to enable the payment option for that transaction. And as soon as you made the transaction, it gets disabled again. Whereas your card is always on, so you can effect multiple payments in a minute without a user realizing, unless they see the notifications coming on their phone. So a tap and go function on a cell phone is safer than a card, because once you've tapped, it will disable the payment function until you enable it again. I think as well, people should look at using digital cards. So you keep a very small amount of money in that digital card, you link that to your digital wallet on your cell phone, and when you make a payment for, let's say, 500 Rand, there shouldn't be much more than that in that digital card at the time. So if somebody does clone your card or manages to effect a secondary payment, they don't get access to a lot of money. I've seen recently as well, something that's becoming more prevalent is these Facebook ads that are linking to goods that are too good to be true. These markdown prices, 90% discount for Black Friday and stuff like that. So you link off to the website, it looks like it's Takealot or Cape Union Mart or one of those online e-commerce platforms that we use regularly, only to find it's a clone. You now put in your credit card details, make a purchase of something that doesn't exist. The next thing you see 10 transactions coming off your account. So the digital card with a limited amount of money in it is probably the safest way to shop as well.
Got you. So have a card, limited payment limit to it, and monitoring it effectively. What else can we do though? Because for many of us, we might feel like, oh, it's an inconvenience. Now, I have a 500 Rand limit. Now this is 550 and I need to, add in additional measures to actually process the transaction. But what additional security features do we need to be cognizant of as consumers?
I think using your phone is one good step. I know a lot of the banks offer some form of fraud or some other mechanism where you can log a call and say, I've had some fraud come off my card, and can you please assist with reversing it or something like that. And while it does invariably come back, they will refund you the money. It can take quite a long time. So I think one needs to figure out the inconvenience of transferring money into your account to be more secure versus the inconvenience of having 10,000 Rand coming off your account that you can't afford to have come off. Even if you're going to get the money back in 6 months' time, 6 months without that money. So one needs to weigh up pros and cons of, all the security features on the transactions versus if I lost my money, how long will it take to get that money back if I do get it back?
100%. So
I think the digital wallet's definitely one of the safer options. And as I say, restricting the amount of money that's in your card that's available is probably a safer way to shop.
Got you. 100%. So consider the digital cards, limit the amount of money that you have on your phone. And I guess if all else fails, is inserting the card still an option, just to have the chip register?
Yeah, I have a credit card that I still prefer inserting. But again, you've got to make sure that nobody's reading the card and trying to clone the card. I still try to keep my limits low. Otherwise, I use a digital tap function on the phone. I think at some point, certain companies are going cashless already. It's forcing us to use our cards more. Yes. But at the same time, I think a lot of people are now starting to almost do EFT transfers, instant transfers from their phones. I think the biggest issue with using the digital transaction is internet access. Not everybody has data on their phone that can transact like that. So it does make it harder for certain consumers. So I think the inserting your card and using a PIN is probably still the safer option. Just be aware of your surroundings to make sure nobody's trying to make a copy of your card or monitoring your PIN number as you put it into the machine.
Got you. 100%. Thank you so much for this, Richard. It definitely does help, especially as we're about to get into full swing regarding the festive season. We might be relaxed and a little de-stressed, but when it comes to our money, we definitely need to be alert. So thank you again for this reminder.
And for those that are getting bonuses, you don't want that to disappear either.
Can you imagine? My goodness. After working so hard. And maybe that's another aspect we need to be mindful of, right, Richard? We've spoken previously to it's the Financial Services Ombudsman and the banking division specifically, and they've told us that they typically get a lot of complaints or concerns around consumers who say money was taken out of their account. The banks then implement an investigation, and sometimes they do refund you and sometimes they don't. So we also need to be conscious of this, right? Because it's not guaranteed that you'd get your money back.
Yeah, plus the time it takes to actually get your money back if you do. It's considerable amount of time. It can take a month to 6 months.
Got you. We'll definitely be a lot more aware. Thank you again for your time this evening, Richard.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Have a fantastic festive season and looking forward to touching base with you next year.
And to you and all your listeners as well.
Thank you. That's Richard Frost, Head of Consulting at Armata Cyber Security. So be careful. Just be a lot more cautious. Funny, as I say this, I'm looking right across the road from our studio, and you'd be well aware we've got a filling station right across the road, and the restaurant that also takes place there, pantry, and a Sasol garage. And in my mind, I'm just thinking of the number of transactions that take place in such a busy space. So do be careful, do be conscious, do be cautious as well. Just make sure that you double check your surroundings whenever you pay for particular services. And I know it does get busy, you do pick up things in a rush, but just monitor not only your environment around you, but even the debit orders and the payments that come off on your transactions. Don't ignore those SMSs and notifications you get from the bank, because the sooner you notify the bank, the easier it is to report the fraud and at least implement the process to hopefully getting your money back.